thank you all for being here and having me here. Like Monica said, I think there is a lot that's happening in the finance and accounts, shared services, in the areas of transformation, the next level of growth. And as part of Deloitte, I've been associated with quite a few of the entire story. In fact, I was at NASSCOM yesterday. NASSCOM had their BPM summit over the last 3 days, 2 days, and where we worked with them to release key trends in terms of what's happening in the BPM industry in India, and also essentially from where the next level of growth is going to come from. So I think both from a transformation, outsourcing, and shared services, while they are key buzzwords, I think are becoming a very, very integral part of the global economy, including Indian clients as well. And what I have today is to talk about some findings from a survey that we do in the shared services space. And this is a global survey that we do every 2 years, where we try and identify what are some of the key trends, what is happening, what is that people are expecting to happen in the next few years. And so I'll run through the slides and then maybe take the next 5 to 10 minutes after that in terms of any questions that people will have, but try and keep it more interactive as we go through this. So, like I said, the objective of this survey was to talk about what is happening in this space, where are we going, what are some of the key trends, why have some shared service centers been more successful than the others. And as Deloitte, we've worked with almost close to around 1,000+ shared service centers across the globe, either in terms of helping them set up, improve performance, or helping with the next level of journey. And so this survey is essentially with some of our clients where we have already assisted them in some shape or form, or with other organizations who've gone ahead and done it themselves. Fairly distributed mix in terms of participants from different industry. Also a fair mix in terms of size, because there are varied sizes that are available. I was speaking to someone, one of our partners in Southeast Asia, who does work with shared service centers there, and he said there are a lot of shared service centers who are 50 to 150 headcount or FTE kind of range. Now those numbers are very different in the Indian context. Can anyone tell me how many shared service centers they guess are there in India? Any guess? Any wild guess? So as per the NASSCOM numbers also, right? And it's not that everyone is registered there. That number is anywhere between 750 to 1,000, or maybe more, right? That's an industry in itself, in terms of a segment where just shared service centers, and these are shared service centers not only of global organizations but also of Indian organizations which are operating. So I think there is a different level of capability that has got developed in India over the last few years, though most of them are much larger in size as compared to what you will see globally. But this survey covers a good mix of those small to large organizations. Clearly, one other aspect that I think is important from a shared service center perspective is that how many shared service centers, or what's the level of maturity of operating a shared service center. And if you see, a bulk of them actually have only one SSC, close to 42%, but a lot of them, remaining 58%, actually have more than one SSC, shared service center. And these could be shared service centers for the same function or for different functions. And clearly, like I said, bulk of them are still in the 100, less than 100, and these are more international. So if you go to Western Europe, if you go to US, the US and Western Europe and Eastern Europe still have large number of shared service centers. So bulk of them are very small in size, and as you grow in size, they start coming to countries like India, Brazil, Philippines, and China. And like I said, while it's gaining importance, I think the number of years that we've seen the shared service centers operational is not very large. It's in fact, I think Raman Roy was presenting this yesterday, day before yesterday, at the NASSCOM conference, where he was talking about um, the journey of the outsourcing industry in India started with captives, when a couple of global large organizations actually set up their captives in India, and that gave people an idea how this could work model, and then the outsourcing industry started to take shape. So So in terms of relative level of maturity, we've tried to cover people from our shared service centers who have been in operation for more than 10 years. A lot of them are also less than 1 year, less than 3 years or 5 years or so. Clearly, in terms of what function leads the shared service center growth and also participation from different business units, finance clearly takes the lead. In fact, 93% of the people that we interviewed had finance and accounts as one of the prominent functions being represented in the shared service center. And close to 43% of those shared service centers had more than one function being represented, and those other functions clearly, as we have seen in our interactions, are also our HR, IT, procurement. A lot of customer related work is starting to come in. Tax, both a combination of advisory and compliance, but more and more you see supply chain, real estate and legal also starting to form an important part of the shared services that are there. But clearly finance and accounts, I think, is one of the leaders. The other point that came out is, as the organizations or as the shared service centers mature, there is a tendency to bring in more and more functions, which is but natural in terms of saying once the model is demonstrated, then other functions also say, why can't I use it? This is a quick snapshot of how the FTEs are distributed across 4 categories. One is local units, local offices, which you can say the business units, then the corporate offices, then we've segregated the shared service centers as knowledge-based shared service centers and transaction-oriented shared service centers. So if you see finance and accounts, close to 62% of the FTEs in the finance and accounts function are actually now sitting either in an outsourced model or in a shared service center. It's only around 35 to 38%, and that includes corporate as well. By the way, most of the corporates have their own finance and accounts teams as well, where a lot of this consolidation, annual reporting, etc. work is done. So if you take that out, it's only 25% which is actually sitting with the business units. That means finance as a function has actually taken a leap forward growth in terms of having a mix of local, corporate, onshore, offshore model to actually deliver the finance requirements. So, which was very key in terms of what we are seeing as a trend, because that's also then becomes a trend for people to say that why can't I do it if others are doing it. Similarly, in the areas of, let's say, HR and especially in IT and procurement, we see that more and more work is now getting shifted to knowledge-based shared service centers. So while the growth of the shared service centers were most transactional in nature, a lot of that is starting to get converted to knowledge-based, analytics, research oriented, and IT and procurement are kind of taking that lead at this point in time. But we've had conversations, and in some of the shared service centers that we've worked with, there is now a natural tendency, or people have already gone ahead and created centers of excellence for some of the functions like recon, maybe internal audit, controls, general accounting. So each of these, there are some specific initiatives that the shared service centers are taking, and that's also being driven partly because the business case that was there around the shared service center has been absorbed in the P&L. So what do you do now? How do you get to the next level? How do you define the value that you're delivering to the organization? The cost arbitrage is there and will continue to be there for some more time, but clearly more and more shared service centers are now looking at getting specialized. So this is one of the key trends that's also reflected here. Again, I don't intend to go through this in detail, but if you see, as of today, bulk of the processes that are outsourced to a shared service center or put in a shared service center are still very much transactional in nature, with AP and AR and general accounting taking the lead. And then after that are processes like FA, payroll, collections, billing, cash management, etc. You see more and more, if you go to the bottom of the chart, where you will see a lot more new processes starting to come in, which are starting to come in after the success that the organizations have had with running the transactional processes. So you see external reporting, internal audit. A lot of organizations are very hesitant looking, saying, if I put internal audit there, how will my controls function? How would I design and test the controls? But clearly, if you see, a lot of organizations, shared service centers in India are right now doing internal audit related work for the global organization. Similarly, budgeting, analytics, forecasting, financial risk management. So I think there is more and more that's starting to happen. But these are some of the trends that we saw in terms of processes that are being run out of the shared service center. How do people see future use of shared service center and outsourcing? Clearly, a lot of them see that transaction processes will continue to be a mainstay. It's not that they're going to go away. There is one interesting fact that I'll talk about later in one of the slides as a balance between outsourcing and shared service centers. But almost 82% of them also said, and when I say 82%, I'm talking about close to 900 participants, 900 organizations that participated in this survey, pretty much global in nature. Almost 82% of them said, we are looking at bringing knowledge-based services actually into our shared service centers as well, which was consistent with what we talked about in the earlier couple of slides. And similarly, from an outsourcing perspective, the transaction processing trend continued, but the organization said that we don't plan to outsource a lot of knowledge-based processes. So clearly, I think there is a balance that people are talking about between shared service centers and the outsourcing market, where a lot of transactional will probably exist in both, or maybe move more towards outsourcing. But a lot of these knowledge-based processes will continue to evolve and start forming a dominant part of the shared service centers. So that's one key trend in terms of what people were saying. This is actually an interesting slide, because as we have grown up in India, we've seen a lot of these shared service centers come up, and we like to believe that bulk of the shared service centers are actually here in India. If you just took played the number game, that's probably not true. I think if you look at US and Western Europe, they probably have far higher number of shared service centers, though they are very small in nature. So I think what has happened is US and UK still have a larger share. If you look at these two graphs, the green bar represents actually shared service centers that have been now operational for more than 10 years, and the blue bar represents shared service centers that are relatively young, less than 3 years or so. If you see, UK and India actually formed bulk of the shared service centers few years ago. But if you see shared service centers which are relatively young, you'll find a wide distribution across geographies. And this is happening for two reasons. One is in terms of risk. Second is, while India has been a clear leader in terms of mainstay and pioneered the shared service center industry, more and more organizations are now looking at alternate options from a BCP DR perspective and also from local language perspective. So there are a lot of shared service centers that first got opened up in India, and then as part of the growth strategy, they opened another shared service center, a smaller version in another geography. So clearly, while US, UK and India played a very large dominant role in shared service center industry a few years ago, last 2-3 years other geographies are also starting to emerge for multiple reasons. The other interesting fact that came out from this survey was, how do you operate when you have one or more than one shared service center? What is the model of operation? Are you completely decentralized? Do you operate as a hub and spoke, or do you actually operate as regional centers? So Asia Pacific will have their own center, Europe will have their own center, US will have their own center, like that. So it was kind of a mix where still a lot of them operate as regional centers, almost 40-odd%, but almost 60% either operate as decentralized or hub and spoke as well. And from a geographic coverage perspective, I think that's where the next level of growth for a lot of these shared service centers also is that a lot of them still serve single geography or single function, and I'll talk about the functions later as well. But some are now starting to serve multiple continents as well. Almost 18 to 20% of them said that we are now, through this one shared service center, we are serving multiple continents. I don't think there is a secret here in terms of what are some of the key reasons for selecting a particular location. Cost definitely being one of them, but I think the biggest one that we've seen, and we've done a fair amount of location analysis for some of our clients, global clients, looking at evaluating shared service centers and large Indian organizations as well. Labor quality and availability of the right talent actually becomes very important for them. We've had very interesting debates about specific cities in India to say that what is the geographical political risk, and should I be here, should I be 100 kilometers further away or somewhere else, and including things like whether attrition rates are higher in north of India, West India or south of India. So people are now getting more and more aware and conscious. People are not only looking at saying, I want to go to India or Philippines or Dalian. They're also saying, where in India do I need to be because of my talent opportunity maximization? So clearly labor quality, labor availability, language skills, proximity to current operations for some select processes, not for all, proximity to headquarters, risk profile, etc. These are all different reasons other than labor cost. So labor cost was only 22% of the people said was the most important reason for us. 80% of them said it was actually not. We were looking at a combination of multiple things. This is actually a very interesting finding, and because we do this survey every 2 years, some percentages change, but this has been kind of a mainstay. How are the shared service centers controlled in terms of where the decision making happens, where the controls reside, where the decisions on next level of growth, and what how the shared service centers will evolve? So close to 20% of them obviously had shared services center for only one function. There are close to 25% of the respondents said they have shared service centers which serve multiple functions but are physically separate and all are also separately controlled. Close to 22% said that they have multiple functions which are co-located. So we are trying to take the advantage of the infrastructure co-location, but they are still separately controlled. A more evolving model is now where from a line extension or a functional or a BU extension into the shared service center, shared service centers are now creating a life of their own on an identity of themselves, which is, like I was saying, creating a center of excellence or getting to be known in the organization as something which the shared service center is good at. So in that case, a lot of them are multiple function co-located as well as managed as a single shared service center. So the top management layer is common. So that's more of an evolving trend. And in terms of benefits that the clients got by having multiple functions in one place, clearly you have a management spread that you're able to spread out over larger functions. But more importantly, the governance structure becomes better, the control, the quality, and also their ability to spread some of common productivity initiatives across functions becomes very, very important. So these are some of the reasons why organizations are saying we are moving to a multi-function, and a single control or governance model structure. In terms of pricing, some of us who are part of a shared service center or have worked with them would know that few years ago the pricing models were largely FTE based. When you have a line extension, you say that these are 4 people that will work with X business unit in X geography, in Y geography, and hence I'll charge you like this. Over a period of time, what has started to happen is that per FTE model has started to change, and it's starting to become either time based, either volume based, or different other models that are starting to come in. And this is very consistent with what's happening in the outsourcing industry as well. In fact, just again on the NASSCOM platform day yesterday I was presenting, the pricing models have changed very significantly even for our BPM service providers. In terms of earlier it was only FTE based, now you're talking about transaction based pricing, you're talking about success linked fee, you're talking about completely variable fee. So there are different pricing models, and this is actually one area where the evolution has happened quite a lot in the BPM industry, but our sense is in the shared service centers also this will continue to change over the next few years. But clearly moving away from a pure volume based. The other interesting part that came out is that there are still a lot of these corporate functions which mandate the use of the shared service center, and because of that they don't allocate the shared service center cost to a business unit. Most of that cost directly goes into corporate from where that allocation happens, but as part of a larger corporate function cost, not necessarily direct allocation from the shared service center to the BU saying that I have spent 4,000 hours working for X business unit and hence this is your charge. So in a lot of cases where organizations are still encouraging use of the shared service centers, the pricing allocation does not happen. This has been an interesting point, and especially when it comes to finance and accounts. One of the points that we always hear is that as finance and accounts, my SLAs are already defined. There is a timeline, my data gets ready, I have to report internally as well as externally. There is monthly reporting, quarterly, half yearly, annual reporting. So these are already my SLAs, but The organizations that have gone ahead and done a lot of work in the SLA space, even within the finance and accounts function, have actually performed better than the organizations that are still in that journey. So clearly, other functions, especially like IT, HR, procurement, have SLA-driven processes and functioning. Finance and accounts, close to 77% of them said that yes, we have a SLA framework that we use. Again, it might not be the most robust one, it also keeps evolving, but there is a SLA framework that all of us are using. And the remaining 23% said that we are still yet to embark on a SLA journey. What were some of the key drivers for some of you here who are looking at setting up shared service centers or outsourcing? Clearly, what was that inflection point or the point in time when the shared service centers became part of the consideration set? I think business restructuring and cost reduction program were definitely one. The second more important one, and like I do fair amount of work in the M&A, mergers and acquisition space as well, especially assisting clients on integrating the two organizations, where finance and accounts clearly becomes a very important function to get integrated. Shared service centers give you an amazing capability to scale up, because tomorrow as you grow, you don't need to create separate finance and accounts organizations for each new business or vertical that you will create. It is a horizontal extension and a much smaller extension within the shared service center. Similarly, when you make an acquisition, it's very easy to integrate if the two organizations have shared service centers for their finance function. Otherwise, imagine like 2 or 3 deals that have got announced in the last couple of weeks, multi-country, multiple finance functions trying to get integrated in different geographies. So I think the scalability is much higher. And then the second is, whenever you're trying to drive a change program within the organization, it could be a ERP, it could be any other technology, it could be any other change in terms of reporting, etc. It becomes much more easier. So each of these have been inflection points where organizations have said, let us explore a shared service center. And what was the approach that people took? Almost 25% said that we took the approach of single function, focusing on single geography. But there were almost 53% who actually took multiple function approach, either for a single geography or for a multiple geography. So I think it's been kind of mixed. So for some of us who are looking at shared service centers, either in terms of setup or growth, there is no right or wrong approach. I think it depends on the capability of the organization to absorb that change. But clearly there are different models that other organizations have followed. This is one question that I get asked very often. How should we set it up? Because there is an enormous amount of change that's required when you're going through the outsourcing journey or shared service center. So what do you do? Do you actually, and in any organization, because they're in-house, they're part of the core organization, a lot of times that there are things that can be improved, but there are not many structured programs around that. So one question obviously people have is, should I actually standardize those processes first? Should I improve those processes first before I move to the shared service center? Or I should do that once I have done that? So again, like I said, there is no right or wrong answer, but in terms of what we have seen, what we have done, and what our clients are saying is that bulk of them actually move the processes to the shared service center before a major transformation exercise or a major technology implementation. So they would rather do that transformation and technology implementation in the shared service center than do it in a distributed geography manner. Still, almost 15% of them said we actually standardized the processes, then we moved. I'll give you one example. We were working with a large Indian client, and they had the same dilemma, and we consciously took an approach that we will standardize and improve some of the processes at the time of migration, but a bulk of that would be done later. So that actually helped us get some efficiencies and some standardization when we were setting up the shared service center, and bulk of it later. So I think there's again no one size fits all, but best is if you can do a little at the time of migration and bulk of it after that, including the technology implementation. Where have the shared service centers given the maximum impact? I think the first one is a no-brainer, and I'll talk about some of those percentages as well, because a lot of shared service centers come to us and saying cost reduction was done one time, so what now? So I'll talk about saying how the shared service centers have actually continued to improve on cost and performance. But If you see the others, all the blue bars and the green bars below cost reduction, these are actually bigger reasons which people initially didn't realize would come as part of a shared service center setup. So process efficiency, effectiveness of internal controls, when you have 1 or 2 locations to manage the internal controls versus 23 locations distributed all over the world or in different cities in India, your tendency and your capability to manage that is much better. So shared service centers have actually helped a lot in the other factors as well: process efficiency, controls, visibility, scalability, quality, improving the service levels, like I was saying, the M&A. It has also helped a lot in terms of optimizing your working capital requirements to a certain extent, both because of cost reduction that happened while setting the shared service center up, and after that putting in a performance management framework which has helped you manage the working capital utilization across the organization. So this is the interesting one. Like I was saying, people say, I've done the cost reduction part. When I migrated my processes to the shared service center, I either did a lift and shift and did 1-to-1, or I did 1 to 0.8 or 1 to 0.75. Interestingly, this survey, and we again almost every 2 years we get the same point, that journey didn't stop there. Almost on an annual basis, the shared service centers are still able to optimize their performance by close to 8 to 10%. Right? And that's a very important point, because a lot of shared service centers get into the static mode. So I have been set up, I have done that 1 to 0.8 migration. Now after that, I am going to be in a BAU mode, business as usual mode, static mode. And that's where a lot of shared service centers stop adding value to the parent organization. Because if you go back and look at the same processes functioning in the parent organization, there was continuously some transformation program happening there, right? And as part of that, these benefits were starting to come in, either through better process controls, through better efficiency, standardization, through technology implementation, automation, like that. I think this is one of the biggest dangers that a lot of shared service centers have, is that they believe that we can't now extract more value out of it. But if you see, if 900 out of 900 shared service participants in the shared service centers, close to almost 60% of them, actually 55-60% of them said, we've got more than 10% annual benefit coming out from a cost reduction performance improvement perspective. So I think that's one very, very important point in terms of continuous evolution. And the payback period is also starting to come down. So initially when the shared service centers were getting set up, the payback period was 3 to 4 years. Now it's starting to come down to 2.5, 3 years kind of a time frame. How can shared service centers be used as a strategic asset? And I'm not talking about the monetization part of it. I'm talking about the some of the aspects that we've discussed: your ability to scale up, ramp up, provide flexibility. Almost 63% of the shared service and of the organizations that were surveyed said that we are now starting to use more and more analytics, because this is another point that's starting to come, is that as a shared service center, they're sitting on so much of data across the globe, and that's actually the only place where so much of data can be found. And we were speaking to one of our clients in the shared services space in Bangalore, and he said, few months ago I had a new board member inducted, and his induction program was to be designed. They sent him to the shared service center in Bangalore. Go and get inducted there, because that's the only place where you'll get a full view of what's happening in my organization. So I think from that perspective, clearly a lot more data, a lot more visibility, very good pulse of what's happening in the organization, which the shared service centers are now saying I can use it to improve the performance of my functioning as well as the entire organization. So that's where the growth of analytics is starting to come in. Where do people think shared service centers will start to continue to evolve? One is higher end processes, and second is more geographies. Like we went back and saw that still a lot of them are catering either to specific functions or specific geographies, and there is a scope for them to grow more. So these were the two things that clearly came out in terms of future role of the shared service centers in terms of growth. In terms of technology, I think all of us are familiar with this. There is a whole stack suite of technology solutions that enables us to perform what we are doing and also improve. There are sets of ERP tools, there are set of management tools including document management, service management, knowledge management. Then there are core tools which enable your functioning like workflow, GL closing, scanning, OCR, like that. And then there are also some tools that are starting to come in to help you with the certification and the compliance part. So I won't steal the thunder. I think some of the people coming onto the panel later will talk about some of these, but clearly it's a mix of tools that are coming in, and a lot of this is what is driving that 10% growth that I just referred to in the earlier slide. What have specifically the shared service centers done, the ones that we surveyed? These are, on the left hand side, are some of the tools that the shared service centers have already implemented to improve the performance or enable the functioning. So at the top is EFT, then workflow, data interchange, using the direct deposit systems, data warehousing, using the self-servicing, imaging, e-invoicing. So these are some of the tools that have already been implemented by a lot. The right hand side is where people are saying, I'll go out and implement these. So if you see at the top, analytics stands prominently in terms of saying that I want to use and manage and leverage this data to be able to improve performance. Incidentally, when I talk about the cloud part, a lot of organizations have gone ahead and done private clouds, but there is still reluctance on saying that, or lack of clarity on how they will leverage cloud in future, especially in a globally distributed model. So that's one other thing that came out in this. However, and there was this term that we had coined with NASSCOM in the BPM report, was there are two sets of clients that you have. One is Fortune 500 and second is Forgotten 5000. So everyone focuses on Fortune 500 organizations because that's where the size, the scale, the margins are. There's also these Forgotten 5000 who a lot of people have not approached proactively in the past. At that Forgotten 5000 level, there is a reluctance to invest in capex. So a soft business process as a service, which is where a lot of you go with the process, with the technology platform to your clients, that becomes very, very important. And you are able to convert the capex to opex, as well as you are able to help them roll out systems and solutions which they won't have been able to do on their own. So I think that is going to gain a lot more importance, and that's where the cloud platform comes in for you to convert the capex to opex. These are some of the customer facing enhancements or technologies that shared service centers have implemented. Again, workflow, electronic document management, portals, chat, data mining, some of these solutions are there. And again, at the top, in terms of future implementation, you again see more focus on data mining and analytics. So again, I think I'm repeating that point across multiple slides, but the evolution of the shared service centers, the way we see, or outsourcing, the way we see in the next few years, is actually more and more of knowledge services and analytics, and accordingly the requirement of the skill sets as well as the technology platforms to be able to do that. So one of the other terms that we've coined in that BPM thing is that, instead of scalability, people will now look at scalability. So you will want to have people who understand the domain, people who understand the specific aspect or the nuance and the customer business, rather than understanding F&A process or HR process. So you will have to understand F&A in retail, you will have to understand F&A in BFSI. It is no longer about, so specialization, scalability, data mining, analytics, knowledge services are some of the key things that will drive the growth in the next 7 years or so. Again, not to belabor the point, but on the technology side, wherever the shared service centers said they were not able to meet the objective, which was less than 50% or of shared service centers that have been set up, bulk of them were actually because of lack of technology or automation or standardization. So I think as we think through our own product suites, our shared service centers journey, I think technology is going to play a very important role, and you should spend enough time talking about it. Wherever, so this was very interesting. We also asked people saying, what do you think has been the area in which they have achieved more than what you had expected? So while cost was definitely there in terms of headcount reduction, majority actually came out and said it was in the areas of service quality. So they didn't expect the shared service centers to actually perform so well in the service quality. So this is like doing more than what the business case had captured. So that's what I had in terms of findings from our survey. Now, clearly, there's a lot more behind this. This is not the, this is only a part of the survey, but we thought that we'll give you a good view in terms of what's happening in the shared services space, which is very similar to the outsourcing industry as well. It's just that we do an outsourcing survey as well, but if I just change the heading, 50-60% of it would more or less be the same. So, with that, any questions from the participants here? Yeah. Right.
Telecom company. A couple of questions here. Very thanks for a very insightful facts that you found through the survey. I was keen to know what percentage of your respondents were India-based shared service participants, and what percentages were outside of India, and would that change the dynamics, if at all?
Right. So in terms of percentage, I don't remember the exact numbers, but I can share with you from my last memory. So bulk of these, like I said, the people who were surveyed were in US, Western Europe, and India, and there were other geographies as well, like Brazil, China, Spain, etc. I think close to 10 to 15% came from India, and the remaining came from other geographies. So it was a mix of in terms of how many shared service centers do we see in each of the geography, and then a proportion of that. So it was planned like that.
And in terms of industry segmentation, would you like to share anything on that?
That was actually there in the. So it was a fair mix again. The idea was.
Thank you. I have one more question. I mean, in one of your slides, you said there is always a dilemma in front of the organizations whether to transform the processes before bringing into shared services or do that afterwards. And you shared your observation that in most cases people tend to bring it into the shared services and then transform. Would that scenario change if the organization is planning to outsource it upfront?
Yeah. Definitely. So two things that change is that one is, if it's a shared service center, you know that the gains that accumulate will come to you. I think that's one of the key decision making criteria there always. While you know that if you outsource the processes as is, and you know there are a lot of improvement opportunities, the gain might actually go to the third party service provider. So two things companies do in that sense. One is, like you said, they do some level of standardization before migrating. The other thing is, at the time of transition and at the time of contracting, you do a baselining exercise as well. So you identify, based on what is there right now, what are the improvement opportunities possible, and then structure the contract in such a way that those benefits actually then get shared between the third party service provider and the organization. So I think it's a mix of both. I would say almost 50-50. It just depends on what is your risk taking capability and which outsourcing service provider are you working with, and how you do the baseline.
Yeah, but I think the process would be a little bit more painful if you have to, move a process which is not in a reasonable shape, move it to a third-party vendor, and then try to transform it like a quick time.
Yes and no. See, a lot of time, one of the key reasons I would like to believe, if let's say organizations have not done it, that it has not been a priority for them to optimize those processes as of now, or in some cases, limited cases, the capability might not exist in the organization as well, right? And that's where, if you actually took a stand and brought in an external service provider, or even agreed with your third party and say that this is what we need to do, then you get that external perspective and bandwidth as well. So ideally you should standardize before outsourcing, but at the same time I think that process takes time. So where does that outsourcing fit in your timeline will determine this decision as well.